Hello and good morning, everyone. Really grateful to see so many people attending this webinar today. My name is Pauline ESSA, and I'm currently the Chief Impact Officer at ESSA. Previously, I was the Director of Research and Programs. It's so nice to see people joining from different parts of the world. So yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. This program has been set up, this webinar, really to give people a chance to hear more about what we have in store for you in terms of small grants for ECD research. So to kick us off, I will welcome ESSA's Head of Communications, that is Ms. Aisel Kipruto, to welcome everyone, and then we'll keep the program going. Thank you. Aisel, over to you.
Thank you so much, Pauline. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's event. My colleague has introduced me. I'm Aisel, and I'm based in Kenya, and we are really excited to have you join from around the world. So before we get started, a few housekeeping items. First, the session is being recorded for sharing with all of you after this event, and also with people who might have wanted to join, but they didn't manage. So by participating, you consent to being recorded. If you have any concerns about that, please let us know in the chats. Please mute your microphones throughout the session to avoid background noise. If you would like to speak or ask a question, please raise your hand or just type in the chat. So feel free to put your videos on, but please ensure that you are muted if you're not speaking. We would also love if you can introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you are joining from and also your name. You can also use the chat for questions and comments, and we will be sure to respond to all those during the Q&A session. And if you experience any technical issue, please send a message to researchinquiries@essa-africa.org. There will be someone who will be on standby to just address any concern. So this event will run for 1.5 hours, and we are really delighted to see over 200 people already joining. That's really impressive. So as my colleague mentioned, today we want to talk about research grants for African-based early childhood development researchers. So we are excited to share more about the call that went out in December, respond to your questions, and just ensure that really all the potential applicants are ready to do so. So we hope that you will find this session valuable. This event is brought to you by ESSA and Real Center with support from Conrad and Hilton Foundation. So really, the aim is to inform all of you about the grant, the eligibility, the application process, and the selection criteria. We would also use this opportunity to address any question, concern from potential applicants. Allow me to briefly introduce ESSA and Real Center, and we can move on from there. So ESSA is, we improve education outcomes through research, advocacy, and program design using data and evidence from Africa. So we work in partnership with local researchers. That's why we are here today with all of you. We also work with higher education leaders, with policymakers, and others to address challenges in the education space and also co-design solutions for better education outcomes. So for more about ESSA, please check our website. Ellie, if you can just post our website link on the chat for people to check, that would be great. And we are also working in partnership with the Real Center at the University of Cambridge, which pioneers research to overcome barriers to education and promote education as a key driver of inclusive growth and sustainable development. So again, for more information about Real Center, please check their websites. So this event is supported by Conrad and Hilton Foundation, and we are really glad that we are able to do this today. So we encourage all of you to engage with us throughout the event, ask your questions, share your thoughts, and connect with us. And yeah, we are very excited. And thank you again for being here. Let's make this event truly valuable. Thank you. And back to you, Pauline.
Thank you very much, Aizul, for introducing ESSA Real Center and the program today. So as chair, we have on the program that Dr. Eunice Williams from the Real Center would introduce the Early Childhood Development Projects. Unfortunately, she's unable to join us today because of an emergency. But I have the great pleasure of introducing Dr. Pauline Rose at the Real Center. She's the director of the Real Center, so she will do the introduction to the project. But for those who've been following and engaging with us from the very beginning, you may note that both Professor Pauline Rose, myself, Lucy, a few of us organized another webinar many years ago, 2021. It feels like a lifetime ago, where we were pushing for funding for Africa-based researchers. And so it's such a relief and a joy that this time we're talking about giving out grants. So Pauline Rose, it's been a long journey, but we're here now. So over to you to introduce what we've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yes, it's very pleased that on this occasion we are talking about something concrete in terms of funding, which, as Pauline was saying, otherwise in the past we've had to sort of lament the fact that there is little funding. So hopefully this will be a great opportunity. It's so wonderful to see so many of you here, and I can see, as it's coming up on the chat, so many people from different countries as well. So yes, I'm sorry that my wonderful colleague Eunice wasn't able to make it, but I'm happy to present on behalf of the ESSA Real Partnership. And we're grateful to the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation for this continued funding. And I'm going to start by giving a little bit of background to what our work has been about and what has led us to where we are. So we started this partnership, I've realized some time back now, in 2017, when we collectively thought about what some of the challenges might be and what might be helpful in trying to collate research by researchers within Africa that are working on education policy related issues. And at the time, we felt that there was a real lack of visibility of this research. When people sort of look at research, when you see who's being cited, often African researchers are not very high up. So we felt that this was important to do something to increase the visibility in consultation with researchers within Africa of what would be helpful. So over the time, we have developed a database which now has over 6,000 peer-reviewed publications, mainly journal articles that are in internationally recognized journals on education. And these are produced by, authored by research based in 48 sub-Saharan African countries. We also always have this caveat that we exclude South Africa. If there's anyone from South Africa here, apologies. But the reason is that there is a far greater publication output in South Africa, and we felt we wanted to really focus on the visibility of countries that weren't getting that same opportunity. I'm sure somebody will put in the chat the link to the database that you can easily access and research, use it for your own research purposes to identify other research that might be relevant to your work. To go to the next slide. So that work from 2017 has led us into conversations amongst ourselves with researchers in Africa, with funders, about how we might move forward, recognizing that, you know, there's a great need as well as an opportunity. So we started this work with the funding from the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation a couple of years ago, what we're calling phase 1, to try and sort of think particularly about increasing the visibility and accessibility of early childhood development research, which I know everybody on the call here, I'm sure, are experts in. So I don't need to tell you what early childhood development research is about. Again, the research being undertaken by researchers within sub-Saharan Africa. And part of this was to establish a community of practice and strengthen the capacity of researchers based on the continent. based on an assessment of their professional development needs, and to promote the uptake and use of locally produced research in policy and investment decision-making through advocacy, communication, and dissemination of evidence. I think we sort of identified that there are already some communities of practice that are active within different parts of Africa. So we felt that that probably wasn't something as helpful for us to set up yet another community of practice, but to make sure that people knew where those opportunities were to link up with communities of practice, as well as bring people together for particular events such as these. So we can also help to sort of people if they want to know more about where there are communities of practice that might be relevant. We have, through this process, produced a number of reports that are all on the website, and that provide a rich source of information of some of the lessons that we can learn through mapping of the research, of what's available on the research. And these have also been summarized into blogs and summary reports, so they're easily accessible for both yourselves as well as policy actors, funders, and others to see what the key messages are. So I'm just going to briefly say a couple of the key messages, which relate, I think, to what this stage of the grants that we're going to be talking about are focused on. So we identified, not surprisingly in some ways, that there is quite a lot of research on early childhood development out there, published by researchers in Africa, that might not be getting the visibility it deserves, but that education in particular was quite low down on the list. You can see only around 10% of the publications were on education. That's not to say health, nutrition, environmental protection aren't also important, but it seems surprising that there wasn't more on education and the related issues around responsive caregiving and play. So that was one thing that really struck us. We go on to the next. And we also looked at the extent to which the publications, and these are publications primarily in what are known as higher impact journals, journals that are quite difficult to get into and have various challenges of other kinds. That actually only around half of the publications received external funding of some kind. And that this was sort of common across all of the different aspects of early childhood development. One really important point, which again is a key sort of feature for how we have designed these small grants that you'll be hearing about, was we were interested to see the extent of collaboration across researchers, whether within countries, across countries within Africa, or between countries in Africa and those that are more in the global north. And what we found was that collaboration was far greater with countries outside of Africa than it was within Africa. So as you'll be hearing, one of the things we're hoping to sort of really incentivize and prioritize are collaborations within Africa. There's a lot of expertise within Africa, and drawing that together across researchers who are within Africa. We have also, through this collaboration, been identifying the needs of early childhood development researchers through various surveys, mapping exercises, events that have been held, and so on. And again, there's a report, so there's always things that you can go and read further about, given that we can only give a quick snapshot now. And the key things that have come up are training opportunities for collaboration. So that links with the point that I was just making. Research communication, how to improve communication of research to wider audience. Mentorship programs, and in terms of mentoring for writing, for grant writing, for publication writing, and advocacy for more support. And I think also funding is obviously a key one that cuts across everything. So related to that, we were very pleased that the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation agreed to continue the funding into what is now the beginning of phase 2. So we're now at the start. And there are a number of objectives of phase 2. You can see in red, the key thing that we're discussing today is the establishing of small grants funding mechanism to support collaborative research projects. But there are other activities that we will also be undertaking that relate to this. So there'll be training and convening, engagement with leadership in African universities, continuing to improve the visibility and accessibility of the early childhood development research, and advocacy, communication, and dissemination. So there's a number of different things that are rather interconnected, but we're very happy to actually be saying a bit more about the process for establishing the small grants, which I'm sure you're eager to hear more about. And so I'll stop here and I'll pass back to Pauline. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pauline. Great summary about all the work. It's interesting seeing that condensed into a few slides, given how much work we've had to do in the past 2.5 years. But yes, thank you. I know a lot of people are waiting to hear more about the grants. So I will now introduce my colleague, Dr. Samuel Asari, to go through the slides about the small grants program that we're initiating. And thank you to all who've been sending through their questions. He'll talk about those as well. Thank you. Over to you, Samuel.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Polinessa, and thanks to Professor Pauline Rose for providing a context for my presentation. So my presentation will kind of delve deeper into the grants that we are giving out to ECD researchers. So as it has already been said, the lessons we learned from phase 1 of the projects, engaging with researchers to understand their needs, and also co-creating solutions to be able to address some of these needs. So the grant that we are giving out is a key component of the support that ESSA and partners giving to ECD researchers based in Sub-Saharan Africa to be able to conduct policy relevant and impactful research. And as you all know from your work and also from other publications, funding has always been key issue for researchers everywhere, but particularly those in the global south, including Sub-Saharan Africa. So we think that this is an opportunity for us and our partners to contribute in addressing this important issue. Next slide. So for the grants, the objective, we have 3 main objectives. But before that, we are looking at giving out between 20 and 25 grants, each totaling up to 15,000. Yeah, the 15,000, but it's not a target. We are expecting to see some budgets of lower amounts as well. So the first objective is to support new or emerging context and policy relevant ECD research topics that could lead to the development of a plan for further research. So the idea is to kind of give opportunity to researchers to kind of start bringing people together and also identifying some areas of interest to start thinking about how they can do something and then build on that, probably to apply for a bigger grant with maybe long-term or probably maybe 3 or 4 years kind of a duration. The other objective is to encourage collaboration and multidisciplinary research among African-based ECD researchers. As Pauline mentioned, the analysis from the project we did showed that most of the time collaboration research is very, very low among African-based researchers. Most of the time it's African and then those based outside Sub-Saharan Africa. So we want to encourage collaboration within Africa because we have similar problems, so we can draw on our expertise to be able to work together to address the problems that we face. And the other objective is to promote inclusion of underrepresented groups, for example, women and early career researchers. Also through the projects that we've done previously, the analysis also showed that women are mostly underrepresented in terms of research production. as well as the early career researchers. So how do we make sure that we create space for these people to be able to do more, so we will be able to have the data and evidence we need to address education problems in the continent. Next slide. And thanks, it has already been mentioned, thanks very much to all of you for sending in very important questions. There were a lot of very important, interesting questions that came through. Tall list of questions. So we've sampled a few and we've grouped them under some themes. So what we'll be doing through the presentation, we'll try to address some of these questions, but there will be a Q&A session where you will have the opportunity to ask the whole team those that have not been addressed, or if there are additional questions that you have for us. So we have questions around country eligibility. So people asking which countries are eligible for this particular grant. So that's something we'll be addressing very soon. There's also issues around institutions eligibility. People are asking institutions, which institutions, especially people working community-based NGOs, whether they are eligible to apply and all that. So these are some of the things we'll try to address in the presentation. There's also issue around qualification and background eligibility around PhD. If I don't have a PhD, can I still apply? Am I eligible if I have a master's, for example? So these are some of the things. We also have general kind of questions that we will try to address. So once again, thank you very much for submitting these questions. And so the grants, what the grants cover, it's a research grant that we have mentioned, and therefore the expenses should focus on research expenses. So these are the broad areas, but I mean, we are flexible as long as the activities and the budget shows that what you are going to use the money for is for research. So these are the very broad areas. So the data collection, for example, primary data, secondary data, there are questions around whether people can use existing data sets. Yes, you can use existing data sets as long as it addresses the focus of the grants. Analysis, yeah, if there are any software that you want to use, these are all some of the things that will be covered by the grant. Training, the training might be, if you are, let's say you have a research assistant as part of the team and you want to train the person in how to use a particular software in doing analysis, that can be captured within the budget. Travel to collect data, travel to meet stakeholders, travel for dissemination. So these are all some of the things that can come under travel. We have stakeholder engagement. The stakeholder engagement might be maybe initial findings, dissemination, bringing together policymakers and other ECD stakeholders to share some of the findings from the work you've done. Yeah, can be captured. Dissemination to stakeholders, dissemination maybe in a university or research institution, maybe a webinar to talk about what we found, or maybe a conference, for example, might be captured under this. Reporting, we will have a midterm report or progress report, and also have the end of the research project reports. So that's might also be captured under reporting. But as I've already said, I mean, these are the broad areas, but of course, as long as what you are doing relates to the research, that will be considered. Next slide. In terms of eligibility, so this is very key. A lot of questions centered around eligibility criteria. So as you can see from the African map, those in color we are West, Central, East, and Southern Africa. So these areas, countries in these areas are all eligible, or researchers based in these areas are all eligible to apply. However, as you know, funders and also organizations will not be able to cover everything. So we try to kind of focus a little bit. That's why we are focusing on 4 main countries: Ghana, Kenya, Mozambique, and Tanzania. But it doesn't mean that any proposal that will come from these 4 countries will be sponsored. All proposals have to meet a minimum quality threshold. But some of the grants will be reserved for researchers from these 4 countries, but it's open to countries in these 4 geographical blocks. We also look at the PhD holder. There are a lot of questions around qualification. So in terms of the lead for application, the person should have a PhD. So there were questions around, I have a master, can I apply? Yeah, if you have a master's, you can still be part of a team led by someone with a PhD. So the lead applicant, or what we normally call principal investigator, should have a PhD, but the team can include people with lesser degrees, because we also want to encourage mentorship, so that other people can also learn from experienced researchers as well. Research orientation institution. Yeah, we want, because it's a research grant and we hope we are giving to the researchers. So the idea is to target people from a research oriented institution. It might be a university. There are also colleges of education. As long as that organization conducts research, it might be a community-based NGO, but you still do research in ECD. But if, for example, you are a part of a community-based NGO, you don't have PhD, but you do some research in ECD, you can still collaborate with others to submit the application. Government department and ministry, yeah, we are keen because some of the challenges or some of the issues that have come up, as you all know, is the nexus between research and policy that disconnects. So we want to encourage collaboration between researchers and policymakers. So we want to bring the policymakers within the conversation as well. So yeah, you can form a team, including someone from the Ministry of Education, and yeah, so that's what we want to encourage. And the next point is policy relevant research. Yeah, at the end of the day, yeah, research can be done for research sake, but we want to make sure that research that will be conducted will have some policy implication. So we want the research to be addressing some of the policy concerns or policy objectives of specific countries. But probably most important will be the focus areas. So we're looking at education, but not only that, how education interplays with health, for example, nutrition, environment, nutrition, parental caregiving, and play. So that's what we
Samuel, you're
muted. You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I hope you haven't missed. So I was talking about the eligibility criteria, and I was saying that the last point, which is probably the most important point, will be the focus of this particular grant, education and how it interplays with other components, for example, health, nutrition, environment, protection, caregiving, and play. So there are a lot of questions around if I don't have a PhD in education or early childhood education, am I still eligible? Yes, so these are the components. You might have a PhD in health, nutrition, environment, protection, caregiving, sociology. But yeah, so as long as you all address issues of education, how these components interplay with education of children between 0 and 8 years old, that will be appropriate. Is to their expectations. As well as we are hoping to give out some money to support you. We also expect something from those who want to apply. So there are a few expectations. The first one is there will be a monthly project meetings of those who will be successful. If you are 5, probably you might not need all the 5 people attending the meeting. You might maybe delegate one person to attend, that's fine. But the monthly meeting is to try to learn from each other. It's not more like kind of an eye on you and try to monitor what you are doing, but it's a way to create a space for us to learn and share. We know there will be experience, there will be less experience, and similar issues people might be facing. So it's an opportunity for us to meet and then share ideas and help address challenges that might be common across the group. There will also be a midterm report or progress report that we will expect you to submit to ESSA and Rest Center. There will be a final report after the projects. We also expect you to keep records of expenses. We know in the African context, sometimes it's very difficult to get a receipt for some of the things we do, but we will encourage you to make sure you keep receipts, those that you can keep, make sure you keep those receipts. So when we ask, that can be shared with us. We also expect you to write one blog or a policy brief to share some key insights or findings from the work that we'll be doing, mainly for non-academic audience. We will also be expecting manuscript for publication. Probably that will be within a year after the research, maybe based on the research you've done, or maybe what the related work you've done. That can also be fine. Next, how to apply. Yeah, you need to apply to be able to be considered for this grant, and there's a process. The first is the application form. I know you've received some applications already, so I believe people are already aware, have seen the document. So the application form that you need to complete, and you need to attach some documents to the form. One of the documents will be the cover letter, a maximum of 500 words that will spell out the research team and the kind of experience that you have in the particular area that you want to conduct the research in. There's also a research proposal, which is a maximum of 2,000 words. If you're including references, that's 2,000 will not include references. I wouldn't bore your ears explaining all these terms, title, the problem. There are no researchers, you know what all this means. But this is the format that we expect. That's something we will expect to see from the research proposal. But probably a quick comment around ethics, because there have been a lot of questions around ethics. Yes, we expect to see how you safeguard and minimize risks, particularly for your participants, especially if they are minors or maybe people with disabilities. So that's something we want to see under ethics. We also want to see if you've initiated a process to have ethical review. Ethical review takes some time. So yeah, you might not have it at the time of submission application, but we want to see the process, what you've done so far. So if you decide to conduct a research in 5 countries, you need to satisfy each country in terms of the ethics, and it means you have to have ethical clearance from. So we need to think through some of these things and see how you want to manage the work that you want to do. We expect budget proposal. Yeah, the 15,000 is not a target. We are not saying everyone should apply for 15,000. But if you are applying for 15,000, you need to justify in the budget. So we don't want to see a lump kind of say 15,000 and you put everything together. We need to see itemized a kind of breakdown and justification why you need 15,000. So you might want to only have 5,000, 8,000, 10,000 budget. But once you justify why you need a particular amount for the project, that will be fine. We want to see curriculum with maximum of 3 pages for the lead applicants and the collaborative researchers. So in terms of the curriculum, we want for all the members of the research team, not only the lead applicant, because we want to see the background. Because, I mean, for the work we've done, most of the time researchers shift based on where the funding is. So we want to see whether you actually have the interest in ECD research and your work that you've done actually demonstrate that. So the last aspect is references. The references is only for the lead applicant. So references from anyone who is not part of the research team. It can be someone from the institution or someone who knows your work. So yeah, we have 2 references, but we are also expecting additional reference, which will be a letter from your institution supporting you that, yeah, we know this person and we are happy for him to lead or to conduct the research. That is not mandatory, because we also know from the discussion with the advisory group of this project that sometimes it's difficult for universities to give this letter, especially when the money is not going through the university, because this we are giving directly to the researchers. So there might be challenges, but we encourage researchers to get that letter of support from the institution if they are able to do so. So we have evaluation criteria. So all applications received that meets the requirement will be evaluated fairly based on these 6 criteria. So the first one is relevance and alignment with the grant focus on addressing country level policy. To us, we've already mentioned the grant is focusing on particular aspects, education and how it interrelates with health, nutrition, parental caregiving, play, so that we want to see that alignment. And it's all be helpful if we're able to link the work we are doing with any existing strategy or objective of your country, for example. That will be very good. Clarity and feasibility of the research approach. I don't want to talk a lot about this. You're all researchers, so you want to see that what you say you want to do, whether the method actually will help you to achieve that objective. Ethical considerations, I've mentioned that you want to see how you safeguard people you'll be collecting data from. Qualifications, expertise of the lead applicant and collaborating researchers. We've also mentioned that, yeah, we haven't specified that maybe a PhD in a particular field. We've made it very broad, a PhD. But then we want to see the PhD, you want to see the team, whether you have interest in ECD based on what you've done, because we also reviewing your CVs. So that's something we want to see. Budget clarity, justification, and feasibility. Yeah, the budget, yeah, you can say you want 15,000, but we want to see the breakdown justification for each item that will come into the 15,000. So we don't expect every budget to be 15,000. You can decide how much you want, but you need to justify that you need that particular amount. Clarity and feasibility of the research timeline. Yeah, we don't expect very big projects. Yeah, you might want to say, I want 15,000, therefore I want to do a lot, because the project is 10 months, May to February. But the actual research is 8 months. That is May to December, 8th month. And the 2 months is meant for reporting. And so we want to see whether you'll be able to conduct your proposed research within the 8 months. So we are not expecting a very big project. We want to see that you'll be able to do your project within the 8 months, and then you use 2 months to report. So if it's a very huge and we think that it's not feasible, that might have a problem. So the next steps, yes, your sharing of presentation slides, this one, and as well as the F&A FAQs. A lot of questions have come through, and I'm sure there will be additional questions. What we want to do, we want to compile or respond to them, and then we can share with you. We will continue promoting the call until the end of February 2025. Important, we'll be setting up application review committee that will include ESSA and REA Center, as well as external reviewers. We will review applications starting next month, February. You also conduct due diligence. So once you are granted the awards, we need to do a lot of due diligence to make sure that all the documents submitted are genuine, and other further checks will be conducted. And then, of course, we will award the grants. Thank you very much. We hope we've addressed some of your questions, but I'm sure there are still outstanding questions that need addressing. So if you have any other questions, that's something we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samuel, for that comprehensive run through the grant, and also sharing some of the questions that have come through from the requests we made in advance. We see there's still questions coming through in the chat, and my colleagues and Pauline have started addressing some of those. We will try to cover as many as we can, but obviously there's a limit to how much we can spend on this call. So for the time being as well, we will open the floor. We had Samuel and Eunice scheduled to respond to questions, but given it's Samuel alone and he's been doing a lot of talking, Pauline and I will be on hand as well to support in answering those questions. So we will be able to take some questions from the chat, but also now open the floor for people to ask directly. I see some hands are up already, so we will start with Irene. If we call on you, if you can please unmute and then ask your question and then mute again. So Irene, please.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Irene Frimpong of Era Mano Group, a partnership organization connecting research, nutrition, education, and health. So I'm excited to be part of this webinar. My question is, could you kindly indicate the number of grants that you anticipate to give for this call? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irene. I think someone referred to it, but he can just quickly respond again.
All right, thanks. So we are looking at 20 to 25 grants. So based on the amount of money we have, but it depends if we get less in terms of the budgeting, because we are saying up to 15,000. But if we are getting more, 10, 5, 8, then probably we'll be able to give more. Yeah.
Thank you, Samuel. And I suppose as well, to try and spread the grants as far as we can. That's why we've put a limit on how many people can apply for. Obviously, individuals will have to screen these grants and review and award. So we are limiting it to one proposal per applicant. And then we'll try and give out as many as we can up to the ceiling of 15. I hope that answers your question. We've got
Yes,
ESSA as well. I'm just going by the hands on my screen. So apologies if I don't call on you straight away. So Esther Senan.
Yeah. Good morning. Yeah, thank you so much. My question is simple. Can I work alone on this project without having collaborators? Must it be a group research, a collaborative research?
Thank you.
Yes, you can work alone. Yeah, if you want to work, you can. Even though we are, based on the evidence that you've found from previous work, we've realized that there isn't much collaboration among researchers within Sub-Saharan Africa. So it's a way of encouraging collaboration, but all the same, we wouldn't say if you want to work alone, you can work alone.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. Can I call on George Ariba, please?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this webinar. It is giving us more insights. I was wondering if we are a team of 4 researchers from different areas of specialties, ECD being one of them, can the PI come from outside ECD so long as it's in education? Must the PI I'm asking be in ECD, and if they are having ECD in that group person?
Pauline, please.
Hi there. Hopefully you can hear me. Sorry.
Yes, we can.
I'm confused with my screen at the moment. Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I think I saw a related question in
Please
the
mute
chat.
their because we were having feedback. Yeah, thank you. Pauline, please.
So the question, sorry, just say the question again. I was then disturbed by the,
yes.
Just repeat your
We're
question.
asking about if the PI is from education, but is not working
yes.
with ECD more broadly. Yeah.
So the PI would need to be working in early childhood development. If you're working in a team where you have strong people who are in education and the PI has a broader focus on early childhood development with an understanding of education, then that's also fine. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. There's a lot of questions in the chat and we're trying to also answer those. If your question hasn't been answered in the chat, could you put it in again? Because it's quite difficult to see them with also the important networking that's going on. It's wonderful to see that networking, but if you put it again in the chat, we'll try and make sure it's responded to. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Just to not miss some of those, there was a question in the chat about whether if you are not from the ECD space or you're not working in a research institute or whatever, are you able to collaborate with others who are? So it wasn't clear from the question what you actually do then. But I suppose if you are part of a team, obviously it should be clear what your role is in that team or what you're bringing to that ECD proposal. So I would say just, yeah, whoever is leading on that needs to justify who their team members are and why they should be part of the team. Yeah, thank you. Can we move on to Abiodun Ezekiel? But also when you unmute, can you please introduce where you're from so people know who is speaking? Thank you. Or what you're doing. Yeah, thank you.
This happy to be here. I'm Dr. Additional Ezekiel from Emmanuel Alain, the University of Education, Oyo, Nigeria. I'm a researcher in science education, but I have keen interest in early childhood education and primary education. So my question is...
Please can attendees mute their
Am I audible now?
They're not speaking. Thank you.
I want to ask, can one conduct research in upper primary school and still be accepted for the grants?
I'm not sure if I understood the question correctly. Did others?
Like if one pick interest in testing some technological applications in primary 4 or 5 or basic 4 or 5 or primary school, can such research be granted with your program?
Maybe I can try and address it. So primary 4 and 5 will be beyond 8 years, right? So I mean the main focus is 0 to 8, and we know people start schooling very late, and so the age sometimes quite difficult to address. But I mean our focus was 0 to 8. So I'm assuming that primary 4 and 5 probably will be 9, 10, 11 somewhere. So yeah, so we are more focusing on 0 to 8. So probably that will be up to lower primary. But yeah, that's my view. But I don't know what other things.
Yeah, I agree. We don't really know what the systems are across all the different countries. So we've limited it to the age rather than the year or the class. So if it fits within the age range, then yes, you're welcome to apply. Thank you. And also, please, when you ask your question, it will be helpful if you put your hand down so we don't get confused. So I'll move on to Araba Osei-Tutu, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the this information session. I am Araba Osei-Tutu, Department of Teacher Education, University of Ghana. And my question has to do with the ethical clearance. Do we need to have the clearance before the application, or we can put in the application while working on the ethical clearance? That's the only question I have. Thank you.
Yes, Pauline.
Yeah, again, seen a number of questions in the chat on that. I think that the point is for the actual proposal to put your ethical what the ethical issues are that you anticipate and how you will respond to them and what the process for ethical approval will be. But we don't expect you to have actually got the ethical approval in advance. We recognize it takes time, so important to take account of that time. But obviously people in different institutions, you might sometimes have an expectation that you do it in advance. So if that's the case, then we would also welcome that, but we realize it takes time.
Great.
Thank you, Pauline.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you, Araba, for your question. Also related to that, we had some coming through where people were asking if we're conducting research in 5 countries, do we need ethical clearance for all 5? And in all honesty, we are not in a position to know whether all countries would require clearance or if you can do it in one. So that's part of your own background research that you need to do. But for reviewing these applications, we need to be convinced, or whoever is part of the review committee will need to be convinced that the project is feasible within the time frame and within the budget that is being requested. So just to elaborate on that for the ethical clearance. Thank you. I'll now move to Jane Kanyari, and apologies if I haven't pronounced your name correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. My name is Jane Kanyari from Daystar University, Kenya, child development specialist and doing research. And my question is, do you have a limit of the number of members in a team? Is there a limit on the members of a team applying? Thank you.
Thank you for that. Samuel.
Yeah, I think we don't have a limit, but I mean, you need to justify why that particular number. I mean, if you are saying there are 7, 6, I mean, you need 6 to do this, but because as we've mentioned, we are not expecting very big projects. I mean, we want you to start working with each other, exploring some ideas that hopefully will lead to some bigger stuff that will probably 2, 4, 5 years project. So if you are depending on what you want to do, and if you think you will need 5, 6, 3, you need to justify the number. But we don't have a particular limit to say you should have 2 or 3 or 4, but it depends on what you want to do and whether the number you are providing, yeah, you can justify that particular.
So I suppose to add to that, we will only give the funds to the lead applicant to oversee for the research. But also, so no matter how many are applying, we are not intending to divide up funds and send around to different members of a team. But also, we did say people can apply for this funding as a top-up to an existing project or project that they've already got funding for. So if that is the case, can people please mute your things, please? There's a lot of feedback coming through.
Pauline, can you
Yeah,
yes.
if you are applying for a grant to top up a bigger one, then it might be that there are more people involved. I don't think you need to list everyone because you will need to justify those who are being listed on. Yeah. I'll move on to Koto Asari, please.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Koto Asari, a lead lecturer in early childhood from Akintana Piaminkan, University of Skills Training and Entrepreneurial Development in Kumasi, Ghana. My question is, you said this is for individuals. And the question is, can it be used for university-wide based projects?
I can start on that. So we're not saying it's for individuals. We are saying individuals can apply, but also we are encouraging collaboration. So more than one person on the application. So we are, through that collaboration, we are saying it can be collaborators within the same institution. So if it's an institution in Kumasi, yes, more than one person from the institution can apply, which will then answer your question about cross-university collaboration. So that is feasible, so long as you are addressing an element of ECD, education plus something else within the 6 areas.
Thank you very much.
That should be all right.
Maybe just a quick one based on some of the questions that came through. So, so all the applicants, whether a lead or a member of the team, should be from an institution based in the eligible countries in Sub-Saharan Africa. So because there was a question that was around whether someone based outside Sub-Saharan Africa can be part of the team, even if the person is not the lead. And so we expect all the members to be from institution based in Sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel, and thank you, Koto, for your question. Can I go to Cherish Tengabo, please?
Hi, good morning. So I'm Dr. Cherish Tengabo. I'm MD and part of the Ethicare Eramano team. I have a quick question. I think in the introduction, as we're reading about the grants, this grant is supposed to be supporting up-and-coming researchers. So we're just wondering if there's an age limit to the PI. Is there?
No, we're not putting an age limit. We don't want to do that. So really, and again, early career can be a fluid term because some people may have started their research career later in life, having done other things. So often that is said to be people within the first 5 years of completing their PhD who may not have really had opportunities to apply for grants. And that's where we're saying we would encourage early career researchers to apply. If you're doing it in collaboration, then maybe look for someone who is more senior as well in your institution or within your network. So there's that provision of mentorship because you need to convince the reviewers that this work can be done, even if you're an early career researcher, that this is a way to strengthen your research capacity and visibility within the space. So we won't put an age limit on it. And your CV, because we've requested CVs for all applicants, that should also help us understand what kind of stage you're at without needing an age limit on it. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much.
That's all right. Next on my screen is Ibrahim Ahmad.
Thank you so much. My name is Ibrahim Ahmad.
Ibrahim, I'm sorry, you're a bit faint. We can't really hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's better. Thank you.
Yes, as I said, my name is Ibrahim from at the Department of Biochemistry, Kano University of Science and Technology within in Kano, Nigeria. So my question is, part of the expectation of the successful applicant of this grant is that they have to attend a monthly meeting. So the question is, where is that meeting going to take place? Secondly, during Mr. Samuel's presentation, he mentioned that there are 4 priority countries in Africa where this grant will be focused on. So please, can I have an idea on the proportion of the grant that will be allocated to those countries in relation to the other countries? Thank you very much.
Maybe I will start. I think the first question is around the monthly meeting. Did you say when will the meeting take place?
Where?
Where? Oh, okay. So that will be an online. It's an online monthly meeting. So we decide once we are contracting when in the month we will have that meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And then I think in terms of the allocation of grant to the focus countries at the moment, yeah, we don't have. I don't have an idea, but I don't know what other people think. But yeah, there will be kind of portion reserved for that particular for the 4 countries. But as I said in my presentation, it doesn't mean it's automatic. Those proposals from those countries should still meet that quality criteria that we expect. So at the moment, I can't tell whether 4 or 3 at the moment. But yeah, it's we have the other team members as well. Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Samuel. I'll add to both questions. In terms of the monthly catch-ups, again, that is really for us to just check that our awardees are on track, or to understand any challenges they may be having after we've provided the grants, and to support them in any way we can, maybe to connect them with other opportunities or link them up to others working in the space that we may be aware of. So it's to provide support and guidance if needed, but also to allow the awardees to engage with each other. It's all part of the South-South networking and collaboration that we've been talking about. So it's not that we are checking on people per se, it's a supporting measure. But also we don't want to get to the end of the 10-month period and then receive feedback that the project didn't happen or things went wrong. We want to catch any problems early, which is why we've designed it that way. But also in terms of the allocation of grants, Samuel has already said we are not going to put grants through applications through just because they are from certain countries. We need to see quality applications. We need to be able to justify that these projects that we are funding are likely to lead to other bigger grants, or at least policy relevant impact in these countries. Because we need to show that these grants are being used effectively to be able to unlock other funding in the future to support more people. So I would say probably focus countries may get 40 to 50% of the grants. We don't have a specific target. We'll see as it comes through. But we really want to encourage people from non-focus countries to apply as well, because you never know. As we are publicizing these opportunities and seeing how much interest there is, we'll continue knocking on funders' doors to see if we can get more out of it. And also people may apply for less than the 15, which then means we can get more grants, more applications funded. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll move on to John Karanja. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Joanne Karanja. I work in a CBO that focuses from Kenya, that focuses on foundational literacy for children ages 8 and below. It's called NABU. So I have the question is, if like for the CBO, maybe we focus on to what level were you saying an CBO needs to focus on they need to be doing research? So to what level do you mean what kind of research? Because for like maybe for CBOs we do needs assessment. Could those apply in the bracket of doing research? It may be because not purely research. So to what level did you mean they need to be involved with research?
Well, first of all, I would say if you are focusing specifically on literacy, there has to be a connection with one of the other 6 areas of ECD that we've mentioned. So yeah, literacy would fulfill that education aspect, but it needs to be connected to something else. But also, I don't think it's our position to say what level of research you need to be engaging in. It needs to qualify as research. You're investigating something that would lead to new results or preliminary results that can be built on to improve knowledge generation. So I didn't fully understand your question, but it's for the application to justify to us that this is research that is worth investing in and meets the criteria that we've outlined in the call and on the webinar today. But if that's, maybe you can send your question in a different form and respond. Yeah, Pauline?
Yeah, just a related question, because there's some things in the chat about what we're meaning by early childhood education, because as somebody also said, there's obviously different age ranges in different countries, but we would be focusing on the age ranges before primary school. We should say, maybe we should have said this earlier, but we are also engaged in some work that's funded by the Gates Foundation, complementary work on foundational literacy and numeracy. And I think, Pauline, without giving spoilers, there might be something in the pipeline about that. So this is very focused on those early years, that is before children have started primary school and in conjunction with other aspects of early childhood development.
Thank you. Yes, fingers crossed that we will have some grants for foundational learning later in the year. So thank you. I'll move on to Innocent Sanga.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you very much. My name is Innocent Sanga. I work as an assistant lecturer at Sokoine University of Agriculture here in Tanzania. And I have two questions. The first one is taking an example that maybe my team has had an opportunity to win the grant. Now, will the grant be given out with the whole budget all at once, or it will be given in small amounts? And the second question is, can I make part of more than one team, maybe in my country or in across the countries? Maybe I'm part of this first team that is applying for the grant and another team. Thank you very much.
Maybe the second one is quite straightforward, so I will handle that, and then maybe the first question under the team. Yes, so we expect applicants to be part of only one application. So that's what we expect. If we see an application that having someone, let's say 3 or 4 applications with a person as part, that probably will disqualify that application. So we expect applicants to be part of only one application, whether as a lead or as a member of the team. But the second question,
Yes, thank you so much. And I think the second question was in relation to how we are going to disperse the funds. In all honesty, we are not going to give a blank decision that all funds be given at the start or at the end. But obviously, this is the first time we're doing this, although many of us involved in this project have been part of grant-giving schemes elsewhere. But for ECD, this is the first time we're doing this. Our due diligence will be really important because, not to be disrespectful, but there's so many people who will be applying that we don't know from Adam. And there's scammers out there. So we have to do thorough due diligence for those applications that meet our criteria and that score highly from their review. And so depending on what has been requested in the proposal and the budget that has been requested, where it makes sense for us to phase the funding, that's what we'll be doing, just to minimize the risk of us losing funds or being to make sure we're able to account for the funding we're given. And that's also why we've said people should be keeping receipts, because we are responsible for these grants and for feeding back to the fund on how the funds have been used and what impact it's having. So if it makes sense to be able to release funds early for people to do the initial part of the research, when we catch up monthly, we know how people are doing. That we build trust, we build confidence as we go along, and then we may release more of the funds. In other cases, it might be that the lump sum is needed to be able to get their project going. So we will look at it on a case-by-case basis, but where needed, we will phase the grants maybe in 2 parts or whatever. We have to do what's practical, but also what is feasible for people to complete. Can I please plead with those who have their mics on to please turn them off because it's disrupting the webinar. Thank you very much. Otherwise, we'll have to mute everyone, as has been done previously. Thank you for your consideration. Can I move on to Guaro Ayaka, please? Guaro, if you are on, yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to get more information about the research grants. My name is Paul from Kenya. I work with Mount Kenya University. My questions, much of them have been answered from other people who are asking questions, but my main area of concern was how you are going to give out these grants. For example, the grant, is it going to be given to a research center where we work in, then the research center to facilitate our research activities, or the research funding is going to be given to the lead applicant in our group, and then we use it for the research purposes. The next question is on after being approved, how long is going to take, or the duration for the research? And after that duration, how are you going to fund? Is it like after we complete everything, application has been done, that's when you're going to give the grants? Or it's going to be given in bits in the areas of concerns that needs the funding? Those are my main questions I was concerned about.
Thank you, Guaro.
Yeah, so maybe I can touch on the duration. So as we mentioned in the presentation, so the whole period will be 10 months. But the 10 months includes reporting, that's submitting the final reports to ESSA and REST Center. So we are looking at maybe 8 months for the actual research, and then 2 months to prepare your report and send to us. But I mean, as has already been mentioned, in terms of we want to give money for you to be able to complete the research. So I believe the money will be available throughout the process, so we'll be able to finish the research. But as to when and how much, that as has been mentioned, I wouldn't be able to tell. But yes, you will get the funding to be able to finish the research within the 10 months. I don't think we will give you money after the 10 months. You will need the money to do the research. So I believe the money will be given within that period.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Samuel. Regarding the question about who gets the funding if you are successful. So I think, again, we mentioned some of this in it. This is direct funding to the lead applicant. We will only give the funding to whoever is lead, even if you are joint PIs in terms of preparing the proposal, and that's fine. But you have to let us know who the lead applicant will be for contracting purposes. So that is the person who will then be responsible for receiving and managing the grant and reporting on the grant. Now, ideally, to make all our lives easier, we would have been contracting through institutions. So you mentioned if you are in a civil society organization or university, ideally, we would like to contract through the organizations, but we don't have funds to be able to pay for overheads at the institutional level. These are small grants to go to individual researchers. So if your institution is able to take the funds and manage it for you without overhead costs, then that's fine. That works better for us even. So it's really up to the people applying or the PI. Can we please ask people to mute if they are not speaking? Thank you. So if, as the PI or the lead, if you let us know where, as part of the budget, how you'd want the funds to be paid out if you are successful, that would really help us to know how to navigate that space. But at the moment, we'll be contracting with individuals who are successful. Thank you. I think that probably answers all of those questions. Next on my screen is Gilbert Mickey.
Hi, Pauline. Thank you very much. Thank you for the wonderful session. I think before I just get to my question, I want to make a comment. I'm Dr. Gilbert Mickey. We work in establishing centers for nutrition assessments in Africa. And my comment first is, as an institution that is focused on working with children from the first 1,000 days of life to the next 7,000 days for nutrition programs, what we know is children get into primary school across most of these countries at the age 5, 6, 7. The first question will be, could we make our application across these centers targeting this age group at the primary school level, because we might be trying to see the efficacy, the effectiveness of school health and nutrition programs on this particular age group. Will that be appropriate in this context? That's the first one. The second question really goes back to the aspect of who receives the fund. As an institution working across the board, we're establishing these centers in Ghana, in Cameroon, in Benin, and Togo, of course. We're wondering, can we put an application as a consortium of these centers? And in that case, will we be putting up the PIs for each of the countries to receive the funding, or the consortium, the umbrella consortium, will be able to receive the funding for all the countries that we intend to put the application to? I think that is it at the moment. Thank you again for this wonderful opportunity. Over.
Thank you very much for your questions. Pauline?
I'll answer on the first one. I'll leave you for the second one. Yeah, I think this is coming back to the sort of definition of early childhood development, which obviously there's always blurred boundaries. But I think from our funders' perspective, they are very focused on the very early years. So actually most of their work focuses on the years 0 to 3. We have sort of argued that we need to extend that a bit to include the preschool years. So it does include the early years up until preschool, but there wouldn't be a focus in this call on those in primary school. One issue might be about what extent does pre-primary education and early childhood development prepare children for primary school, but it wouldn't be so much focusing on those who are in primary school, if that makes sense, just given the scope of what we can do within this call. But let me hand to Pauline and Samuel for the other question.
Thank you. So your other question was about disbursement, I mean, in your case, a consortium. So again, we are not currently set up to give the funds at institutional level. If the consortium wants to be the lead on the project, there still needs to be an individual at consortium level leading on this. And it's not up to us to decide which of the countries that are partnering should do that. It's for you as a consortium members to decide, yes, we're going in as a consortium, but this is the person, the researcher who is leading us in this process. And if you're successful, then it's for you to let us know where we are paying the money. Is it to the lead applicant directly, or is it to the institution? But somebody has to account for the funds. And we need a name, a lead on that proposal. So I hope that clarifies things for you. Because once the funds are sent to that individual or the consortium, then again, it's up to the lead to decide how that funding is disbursed to other members of the consortium. We just need accountability for how the funds have been used once we've signed a contract with the individual or their institution. And again, as I mentioned, we don't have provision for overheads. So that's something people need to consider when preparing their budget. Next on my list is Esther Okello. So I'm trying to go through in order of appearance as people, but we are beginning to get to the end of the session. So we'll get through as many as we can. And as someone mentioned, we'll share the summary list of questions and responses, FAQ afterwards. So Esther Okello.
Thank you, Pauline. Part of my question has been answered as you are answering what Gilbert had asked about the inter-country application. But still, just more emphasis is needed on aspect of collaboration. We have inter-county collaboration, which we can do from perhaps maybe one department to another, depending on the setup of countries. And then I also wanted to know whether you would also encourage the we have the inter-county, perhaps from the focus countries we have Kenya, we have Mozambique. So we could have a team of researchers from Kenya working on a specific area that affects education, and maybe another team working in Mozambique. So if these two teams are working together, maybe with the hope of doing a comparative analysis, whether that is encouraged to encourage collaboration, or whether our collaboration is within the intra-country collaboration from one department to another. My second concern would be whether there's a window of opportunity that you may still reconsider in your evaluation. Maybe if we could have PhD candidates that are currently working on early childhood development or education, whether there's an opportunity for them to do that application, or whether it's still pegged to somebody who is currently with a PhD as the lead PI. So those are the two areas that I wanted clarification on.
Thank you very much for those questions, Esther. Does anyone want to respond? No. If not, I can. Okay. Since I'm already unmuted, for the collaboration, really, we are allowed
1 o'clock.
Sorry, whoever is talking at 1 o'clock, can you please mute? We're almost done. Another 6 minutes and we'll be done. Thank you very much. So in terms of collaboration, really, we've left it open to you. You can have inter-institutional collaboration, within institution collaboration, intra-country, inter-country. Really, it's up to you to design the collaboration aspect of your project. But as we mentioned earlier, we're expecting only one application per individual. So we leave it to you to decide what your chances are and what type of proposal and composition of team would best put you in the best light for this competitive process. And then in terms of PhD candidates, we have to start somewhere and stop somewhere. We really do need the lead applicant to have a PhD to apply for this. Because if we open it up to PhD students or master students, we will be inundated. We know that the demand is high, but also it's to give those who already have a PhD a chance to carry on with research, because often what we've seen from previous projects is people get a PhD and then funding for research dries up. So this is a starting point. As we get more funding, fingers crossed, then we can open it up to a broader group. But for now, please, the lead has to have a PhD. Other members can apply without a PhD if their lead has one. Yeah, thank you. I think I'll just take one more question and then I'll wrap us up so we stick with time. So I've got Immaculate Cantoni, and then really apologies to the others whom I cannot get to. Immaculate?
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity to ask a question. My name is Immaculate Kadomi. I'm a researcher based in Kenya. I have two questions. The first one is on the timelines. You indicated you have a timeline of 10 months. I'm just wondering whether this is inclusive of the peer review publication period, if that's inclusive of that timeline, or because again, peer review might take more time than expected. And then the other issue is, well, I understand the issue you're dealing with in terms of early child development. but then again, it's also a cross-cutting issue, and I'm just looking at it from an economist point of view. And I was just wondering whether if the PI would happen to be an expert in economics, but then the team has an expert in early childhood education. Is this something that you would consider, given that you strictly said that the PI should have the qualification of early childhood development? I was just wondering that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline.
Yeah, on the second question, again, there's been a few in the chat, so just to sort of give the same response as been given there, that the PI would need to have expertise in early childhood development, given that that is the focus of this call. There might be other members of the team that bring specific expertise that can help inform the overall proposal, but the PI would definitely need to have that expertise.
Thanks, Pauline. And I think for the first question, Samuel, you've already said it a few times, but back to you.
Yeah. So for the first question, so the 10 months, 8-month research, and then probably 2 months reporting. So you'll be given 12 months for the peer review publication. So that's after you've submitted the reports to ESSA and REST Center, you have 12 months to then prepare a manuscript to submit for publication. So it's not part of the 10 months.
And yeah, thanks, Samuel. But also it's not that we're saying everyone should wait for 12 months before they submit something. If you have something already ready to go by the time you submit your report, that's fine too. It's just we are aware that it takes time to prepare manuscripts after you've got your results or preliminary results. Yeah, we put in an additional month, but that means if you get the funding, we are going to stay friends beyond the proposal. We will be engaging with you and seeing how things are going. And again, like we said, as a supportive group, not headmasters checking on students, for example. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So we've had a great session from my point of view. We've already done almost an hour and a half. Thank you so much to people who joined this, and we still have more than 260 still on the call. So clearly people have given their time for this. Lots of interesting questions, lots of repeat questions. Some have been answered in the chat. We've tried to answer some on the call, but we really appreciate the fact that people have put time aside to connect with us, to understand what is needed. And so we are hoping and expecting that we'll have really strong quality applications coming through that meet the eligibility criteria. It's hurtful when people spend time preparing grant applications and then you have to be told you are not eligible, you don't meet the criteria. And we will have to sift through to only review the ones that are eligible. So please, if you are considering applying, please check that you meet all the eligibility criteria so you don't waste your time or the time of those who are having to filter. But there's so much talent out there in Africa. That's why we do what we do, pushing, advocating for funding. We want to support researchers to do what they do best because, as was said earlier, context-relevant, policy-relevant research is what will be able to drive development on the continent of Africa. And so your voices matter. We're trying to amplify those voices through the engagements, but also your research and your publications will lead to better solutions being developed for early childhood development and for the other areas that we hope to touch on in the future. So thank you again for your time. Thank you to Samuel. Thank you to Pauline, Aizel, Krista, Ellie. I can't mention all the names, but a lot of people have been involved in getting us to this stage today. And of course, the funder, Conrad N. Hilton Foundation, for starting us off with these small grants. We hope there are more funders to come and more funding to flow through to Africa-based researchers. Pauline, I see you have
just very quickly on a couple of practical things. You will be sent a post-event survey. We would be really pleased if you could complete that. We will put the PowerPoint on the website, and we will also summarize some of the frequently asked questions and responses to those on the website. You still have a chance to answer questions via the ESSA email that is on the call for proposals. So just that there's been a few questions about those things in the chat. So I just want to
Thank you, Pauline. So please, if you haven't already, have a look at our websites, ESSA, Real Center, sign up for our newsletters. There's always great information in there. And thank you for engaging with us. Enjoy the rest of your day. And we look forward to receiving your applications. Thank you all, researchers and funders. Thank you. Bye-bye.